I didn't really think this would be considered a hot take, but the internet would tell me otherwise. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lotus Asakura, the one who never knows best, and today I want to talk to you a bit about Mortal Kombat 1 and just a bit about the Twitter FGC in general and whatnot. And you'll understand based maybe off the title and the thumbnail alone. I don't know how I'm titling or thumbnailing this here, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Mortal Kombat and about a tweet that I'm sure a lot of you have seen by now, whether it was the original tweet or a quote tweet or retweet about it. So what am I talking about? Well, if we swap over here to the monitor, actually let me swap my cam a little bit as well. You can see Giuna made a tweet recently that garnered a lot of attraction. If you don't know who Giuna is, I mean, where do I even begin? He's a longtime member of the FGC, commentator, player, tournament organizer, content creator. He's got his hands in many bowls, his eggs in several different baskets, you know what I'm saying, and is predominantly an anime player. As we all know, the other day, the Mortal Kombat 1, or was that just yesterday? My sense of time is in shambles, boy, let me tell you something. But the Mortal Kombat trailer finally came out. We got to unveil the announcement of the next Mortal Kombat game. It's Mortal Kombat 1, it's a reboot. It's coming out later this year in just a few months, etc., right? I personally made my own reaction to that trailer. I like Mortal Kombat. I grew up playing Mortal Kombat. I haven't played every single game. I'm not like a hardcore super like MK stan like I am for like Tekken or like I would be for some of the other games I play, right? Like there are other games and franchises I'm more invested and interested in, but I do like Mortal Kombat and I do intend to pick this game up and play it. That being said, in my own video when I was reacting to it, I kind of had some like, whoa, you know what I'm saying, type of reactions to some of the gore and whatnot that was shown in it. Because as we all know, Mortal Kombat is very bloody, very violent, and it just, you know, that's always been part of its identity. We all know and understand that. And then in that video, I was like, us as content creators, we're gonna have our own struggles with monetization and just getting flagged, whatever. That's this whole other thing. But I also acknowledged in that video that for myself, even as somebody who enjoys Mortal Kombat and tends to pick up and play the game, it does kind of feel like, hey, yo, how much further do we really need to go with like the blood and the violence and the gore and stuff? Because at this point, it just kind of feels a little bit over the top. And I did not realize how hot of a take that was for people, and just how passionate NRS fans were and how strongly they felt about that. So let's go ahead and get into it. So moving back over to these tweets, you can see that Giuna makes a tweet that says, I have negative interest in this series, so I don't care if they change it, but I hate the forced violence and gore in Mortal Kombat. That's it. That's the tweet. And as you can see, this ended up with 1.6 million impressions. This reminds me just a tiny bit of a tweet I made recently where I tweeted out my anime character tier list for main characters, and well, yeah. So, but I digress. I felt like this tweet that he made is, first of all, I didn't think the tweet that I made warranted anywhere near the response that I got. I feel like this is 10 times more harmless than the tweet that I made, right? Because with my tier list, I was intentionally trying to ruffle some feathers, but to me, this just reads as like, hey, I don't really like Mortal Kombat, and the big reason for that is all the violence and the gore. They're not going to change it, and, you know, it doesn't matter to them because I'm not going to play it, but, you know, just basically he's just stating his opinion, right? And I understand 100% the mentality, the mindset, or the response of, well, if you don't like it, then don't play it, or we don't care, right? You can see he makes this follow-up to this as our NR spoilers. Okay, but we'll get to that. So I have negative interest in the series. So upon reading that first line, that first fragment of the sentence, a lot of people say, well, why do you care? Or why are you talking about it? Why are you tweeting about it? Etc., etc. And I get that, right? He could have maybe made this exact same tweet on any other day other than the exact same day as the reveal of the next game, and it probably wouldn't have garnered this much of a reaction as it did. But because he made it on the day where all the NRS players in the community is like, oh yeah, hooray, you know what I'm saying, we got a new game, blah, blah, blah. It kind of feels like being a stick in the mud, the killjoy, the buzzkill, whatever you want to call it, right? Like you're just trying to rain on people's parade. That's not really how I interpreted it, but I could fully understand if that's how you see it and that's immediately your reaction or your response to it, right? That being said, moving on, he says, so I don't care if they change it, because he's like, to me, you know, I'm probably not going to play the game, but I hate the forced violence / gore in Mortal Kombat. Now, again, this came off to me as very harmless, and I kind of resonated with it a little bit, because I like Mortal Kombat, right? So like we're different in that aspect, but even in my own video, when I saw some of the stuff that was happening in the trailer, I was like, hey, yo, like when is enough, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of people responded very strongly and very negatively, very passionately to this tweet. As you can see, over 1,000 retweets, most of which are quote tweets, a lot of bookmarks, and over almost 2 million impressions, with a lot of people basically saying, stick to anime games, you're a crybaby, violence and gore has always been in Mortal Kombat, etc., yada, yada, yada. And I get that. And we can just probably take a look at some of this stuff. And you know what I'm saying, there's someone who immediately is like, oh, I hate the force Ryu Hadoken, obviously memeing, talking about Street Fighter and stuff. And if we look at like the tweet he put out later, he's like, our NRS player's okay, responding to the insane reaction that he ended up getting. And then somebody clearly DM'd him, said, how old are you? 12, weakling, big ass crybaby, stop being a sensitive bitch and go play a fighting game that has bubbles and stars. Which is kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. This is kind of funny. He's got some laughing, crying emojis here. But it's just like, this opinion that he shared, sure, could he have chosen a different time to do it? Absolutely. Should he have? For his own sake? Probably. Does he care that much? Probably not. You know, Giuno's been one to meme and stuff, and I don't think this ruffles his feathers too strongly one way or the other. I'm sure that he's just fine. I don't think he's losing any sleep at night. But it is interesting to see because, again, like my own opinion is that Mortal Kombat's violence and everything is absolutely part of its identity. And if you don't like that or don't enjoy that, then you don't have to play the game. You don't have to buy the game. No one's forcing you to. And, you know, that's always been the way it is. And that's probably the way that it's always going to be. And that may or may not be for everybody. And that's perfectly fine. So again, I can't stress enough that a big chunk of the reaction that this got, or the amount of passion people responded to it with, is probably not matched if this is tweeted on any other day prior to the trailer, right? But again, a large part of this has to do with the fact that the day it was tweeted on, I can acknowledge that. But the argument or the conversation, the response of like, oh, blood and violence and gore has always been part of Mortal Kombat. It's always, you know what I'm saying, like this isn't new and people act surprised, I just feel like they're high-key missing the point, and something that I feel is very obvious, and that's the fact that this that you're seeing on screen right now,
finish it. You can't win. Finish him. Kung Lao wins.
is extremely different from what we're seeing today. I feel like, obviously, at this point in video games, the technology in the consoles are way more advanced, okay? So the graphical fidelity that MK games have, and that this next game seems like it's about to have, is infinitely more impactful than what we were getting back on the SNES or in the arcades and like the first few Mortal Kombat games or whatever, right? I don't even know if I'm putting it on screen right now because I'm reluctant to, because it's so realistic, right? And I think that's where like the disconnect comes in between NRS players and non-NRS players, where it's like, yeah, we understand, we acknowledge, and again, I like Mortal Kombat, you know what I'm saying? But it just, for me, I'm one of those people, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, you know, maybe I won't play MK as much because I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that in terms of like, do I want to see that? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that this video is going to get a lot of reasonable comments, but there's going to be a handful of comments of people who are also just like, stick to DBFZ, you crybaby, or whatever, right? Like, I don't really care about that. And people can dislike this video all they want. Like, I put out that anime tier list video and it was like my most disliked video ever. I didn't lose any sleep over it. It's just funny to see. But that being said, I even made my own tweet quoting Giuno. And I went on to say, like, I find it really weird just how hard people are, maybe I should move the camera again. I find it really weird how hard people are trying to dunk on Giuno over such a harmless tweet. All homie did was say he didn't like the gore in MK, which is genuinely how I really felt. Like, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, and it just keeps gaining more and more steam. And then, you know, I see a lot of people are focused on this point right here, where it's the fact that he used the word forced in the sentence, which there is some merit to that, right? Because for a lot of people, they're like, you know, saying that it's forced is such a reach or that's so untrue, etc., etc. I kind of disagree with the idea that it's not forced, because they literally, like, I understand that it's part of NRS's identity in the Mortal Kombat series to make the games bloody and violent and full of gore and everything, but it is something that they are legitimately going out of their way to do, to constantly one-up themselves and make it more and more brutal. Like, that by definition is forced in my opinion, but we can disagree. But that's another part of this conversation. That's semantics, vernacular. Like, I feel like that got read so much deeper into than it really ever needed to be or should have been, and that's part of what spawned this conversation. But then I also obviously responded and said, now I've seen some people on the timeline trying to dunk on plenty of others regardless of that word, and what I mean by that is that I saw a lot of other people, much to myself, some more passionately, some less passionately, coming to Giuno's aid or his side or whatever and saying like, yeah, no, like, I agree. And then other people being like, oh no, I disagree or whatever. But like, regardless of how they worded it, there are people getting dunked on. It's like, oh, go be a crybaby somewhere else, or y'all are just sensitive, or this and that. And it's interesting because I feel like the NRS players have always had this reputation of being like really immature and toxic in the FGC. And this was a perfect example of that. And I don't I mean, obviously that's a generalization, right? I know personally some really cool people that are from NRS, like Beyond Toxin or K7, you know? Those are guys who come from Mortal Kombat and Injustice and stuff, and I'm pretty cool with those guys, you know what I'm saying? I rocks with them. And obviously there's other people who play NRS games, Sonic Fox and so on and so forth. Well, you know, Sonic is a very polarizing figure for a lot of people, but regardless, I'm sure there were some great people in the NRS community, but this was definitely a shining example of what people are talking about when they do stereotype or generalize that scene. But every scene's gonna have its bad apples and its bad eggs, so it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know, I just find it really weird because I don't think that somebody not wanting to see super realistic violence of that caliber should be that weird. And I understand, again, well, if you don't like it, then don't play it. But consider this, right? For one, you should want as many people as possible to play your game. Mortal Kombat is one of the most iconic, best-selling, and like significant fighting game franchises of all time. When you ask most people to name a fighting game, odds are they're going to name one of 3 games, most likely, right? Most likely. If you ask 100 people to name you a fighting game, 97 of them are going to say one of 3 games. Like if you just go on the street, right? Tekken, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. If you go out in the street, you ask like 100 people to name you a fighting game, like 97 people are going to say that. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch because maybe there's a lot of people out there who would say Smash because they consider Smash a fighting game. Not here to have that debate, but regardless, right? Those are like the big 3, I would say, in fighting games, right? And something I don't think a lot of people have considered is, what if people are really interested in the lore of Mortal Kombat? They think the designs and the characters and movesets, move lists look really cool. They're really interested in the gameplay. They find the game very fun to play, but they're very off-put by the super over-the-top violence, which I guess there's a debate about whether or not it is over-the-top, which, I mean, I consider myself pretty open-minded, but I just don't really see how you can argue that it's not over-the-top. I can't think of anything more violent than Mortal Kombat, if I'm honest. That's just me. But like you could have this long list of things that you like about Mortal Kombat. You want to play the game, but there's this one big thing that's really turning you off from it, and I'm not saying that like Mortal Kombat or NRS should tone it down, because having an identity and like catering to your core fan base absolutely matters, and there is merit to that, and I respect that, right? But I don't know, it would be cool to see like some sort of features in a Mortal Kombat game where you can like tone the effects down, you know what I'm saying? Make it a little bit less bloody or gory or whatever. Or like maybe change the color of some of the effects, which would also help those of us who create content on the games and stuff not to get flagged and demonetized and whatnot. And for NRS being as community driven as they are, and for being as vocal and, you know, as good with the communication as I feel like they usually are, I'm surprised that there isn't something that they've included. And you would also kind of, now that I think about it, it's also kind of surprising that MK is as big as it is, which I guess just goes to show that like, hey, maybe it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Maybe they've gone this far with it and they have no reason to do otherwise, because it's proven that it can work and succeed, right? But you'd think for the sake of like streaming and esports and advertising and other things like that, they'd want to have some sort of filters or tone it down. But I guess it doesn't really matter, because obviously there's a market and a demographic for Mortal Kombat, and people who understand what the game is and they accept it for that. And it just either you support it or you don't, or you play it or you don't. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily here, I guess, to make a firm point or stand like on any line in particular, because I do kind of find myself somewhere in the middle. But I just thought it was an interesting conversation to have and acknowledge the fact that, like, yeah, Mortal Kombat is a very, very violent game. Some people like that, some people don't. But I just personally thought it was very strange how passionately people were attacking those who felt like it is you know, a super violent game. Matter of fact, can I go to my own page here? You can see Evan Hashimoto, who is a well-known commentator in NRS, I would say, also obviously plays the game, says, I don't know why you're dogpiling on this. It's super common opinion with how realistic the gore has got in MK. I have a lot of FGC friends who've mentioned they're interested in the game, but don't want to see such realistic violence. It isn't a bad take or an insult to the game, and I agree. Like, it wasn't really meant. Maybe Juna kind of meant it with a little bit of an insult, like a little snide kind of remark. Maybe. I even feel like that might be a bit of a reach, because, you know, Juna can be a bit of a troll at times, but like, I legitimately don't think that's supposed to be a bad take or a hot take or an insult. It's just a statement. It's just an opinion. It's like, yeah, I don't really like all the gore in Mortal Kombat, and a lot of people feel that way. And likewise, just like Wonder Chef or Hashimoto, however you want to refer to him, I also know a lot of people who like, yeah, I'd play MK if it wasn't so crazy, realistic, and violent. And I want to say even Sajam or Lord Knight, one of those two. Or is it the Kill Sage? Nah, because Sage had tried to play some MK at some point. One of my homies, one of those three, definitely told me before that the main reason why, I can't remember which one it is, I'd have to ask them. One of them definitely told me the main reason why they don't play it because it's just too much for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just don't want to see all that. And like, I feel you. I don't feel like that should be like a cause for discourse. You know what I'm saying? So again, I fully understand and acknowledge, well, if you don't like it, then don't play it mindset. I do feel like that is a bit closed-minded in the sense of like, now, this is supposed to be a community. Like, you're supposed to want as many people to play your game as possible, whatever. And then just attacking them the way that they attack Giuna is just kind of crazy to me. And I think even in these replies, I think I saw something, yeah, where it's like, the point is that it's been the identity of MK since the get-go. It's always challenging norm with his violence and gore. I get that. I believe Mortal Kombat is even part of the reason why the ESRB like rating system for games even exists. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I haven't like Googled this stuff, but yeah, and it's like, okay, yeah. Then this person makes a really good point. It's not the over-the-top act itself that is the problem. It's the graphical fidelity that gets improved with every iteration of the game that makes the depiction of said violence more and more realistic. And some people put off by that. And again, that's part of it for me, is that like, you know, growing up playing Mortal Kombat as a kid, I feel like it was a lot goofier and more cartoony, and a lot less realistic. And obviously the graphics weren't nearly what they are now. We're at a point now where parts of that trailer look like it's live action and not animated at all. Like the CG in it is that good. And, you know, the actual game itself probably isn't going to be nearly as crisp and as detailed, or maybe it is, especially since it's exclusive to the next generation consoles, or current gen in my opinion. But maybe it will look that good, but it probably isn't going to look quite that realistic, right? But even still, we're at a point where it's just like, damn, that really just looks like real people, like getting their intestines ripped out and their skulls smashed and stuff like that. And just like, I'm going to play the game. I'm going into it with the mindset that I have, but, you know, if I'm being fully transparent here, one of the things that could potentially keep me from like getting super invested in the game is just how graphic it is. Cause, you know, I grew up playing Mortal Kombat, and I've played them all the way up to Mortal Kombat 11, but just like those reactions I had to the trailer when I was like, oh, and hiding my eyes and like, oh, like those were genuine reactions. Like I was like, yo, I don't know if I really want to sell that. So I'm going to try the game, cause I like the gameplay. I like the games, but you know, this might be the one, and it might not be. It could easily go either way. Like I said, I feel like I'm in the middle, but this could be the one where I'm like, yeah, dog, I don't know. I think I'm gonna tap out. I think that might be it for me, but I don't know. What do you guys think? How do you feel about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all this content that I'm bringing you. Lola being said, is pretty much off today, and remember that they can happen to you swing the bat. Later.